Hey there, this is Mark Friedman from Tulip, and what I want to do today is walk you through an application that is going to be the first in a series of videos, all based on the same architecture. So this application is built in a certain way, and there'll be future videos that describe how you can use the same method to make other applications that do other things, all based on the same sort of principles. This is a group of applications that all are built on the same architecture. The purpose of this application is to basically give you production visibility as quickly as possible. So in a manufacturing operation, it's very typical to have work centers, which could be assembly cells or maybe machining centers. And these work centers have targets. They should be producing something at a certain rate. So what's typical is you'll see like an hourly scorecard where people will write on a whiteboard how many they've completed against their target each hour. And this is a manual process, and it becomes more challenging when you have different models that might have different rates of output. So this is a way of automating this in a way that's very quick and easy to deploy to your operation to give you that visibility very quickly. So what I'm going to do is basically walk you through this as if you're installing it for the first time. So the application acts a little differently the way it's designed so that it walks you through that process. So let's pretend like you just logged in for the first time in Tulip and in this application, and you've set your device. And then you're going to go in and log in. This is the player here. You're going to log in with your badge number. And we're going to select this application, which is Simple Production Tracker. And we're going to press begin. So this application recognized that I have not yet assigned my device to a station. So you see here it's unassigned machine. Here is the station I'm on. So if you go to, and it's telling me how to go ahead and do that. So here I am in the browser where I'm in the shop floor stations. And you can create new stations with this button here, create new station. But you'll see here that my device, marked PC, is on an unassigned machine. And the station I want to put this on is assembly 2. So I'm going to just drag this over, and now I'm been assigned to that station. So here I am in the player again. What I did is I just reloaded the content, which is what I recommend you do after moving between stations because it helps reinitialize the player. So here I am now, about to log into the station. I'm going to open up the application, Simple Production Tracker, and begin. And what you'll notice here is I'm at a different screen because this is the first time this app has been opened up on this station. I have to set some sort of parameter. This isn't something an associate would see. It's just something you'll see when you go and launch it onto production. And what it's saying here is that we want to set a default rate of production. In this case, I'll say 60 units per hour. And every time I complete a unit, I want to complete 1 unit. You might have a batch of 10 instead, for example. We're going to complete 1 at a time. And what this is doing is just setting up your station so that even if the associate isn't working on a model, let's say they're between models or they're just at the start of a shift, you're going to want to count the fact that they are not producing against some target because that's time that is valuable. So we're going to just press continue here, and now this is the screen that an associate would typically see when they log in. In this case, what's happened here is there's no target yet because no time has passed really, and I have produced nothing. So this is basically when someone starts for the day, they'll see this. You can also see that the model selected is the default model, which is at 60 units per hour. And what's going to happen here is every 60 seconds, this application is going to increase the target based on the rate. And then there'll be an hourly scorecard here. So while that 60 seconds passes, let me show you what happened in the background. In the background, when you went to the station configuration phase, what it did actually was it created a row on this table. And this row here is saying that, hey, for assembly 2, this is the rate, the standard rates here. And here's a yield thing we'll get into in a future video, but this is just a standard expectation for this cell. So that's where we are here. So if we go back to the application, we should expect a refresh soon with a new target. So that's how that works. And then what I'm going to do is walk you through how this application functions. So what you'll see here is the first step. So this first step is basically checking what station you're on. So here the trigger is one trigger, on load, check the station. And what I'm doing here is saying, hey, is the station name that you're on equal to unassigned machine? If it is, stop here. If it isn't, go on to the next step. So that's what brought us here in the beginning. So let's check here. Cool. You'll notice that the goal increased to 1. And here is the hourly scorecard. And it's gone red because we haven't produced anything, but the expected output at this point is 1. This way, an associate can know in the hour, as the hour progresses, whether or not you're winning or losing. Also, I can press this button to increase my actual. So I just increased it, but my goal also increased as well. So let me do it again, and now I'm on par here. So you'll notice here that I'm using color variables, which is one of the newest features Tulip has to help give this sort of visual management a little more flair. And this thing hasn't updated yet because this has a little bit of a delay in update, but this updated very quickly. So you'll notice here this actual and target has just updated, so it's an accurate representation of what happened so far in the hour of 2 p.m. All right, so this is the app functioning. This is the entirety of the application. There is the ability to change models. We can talk about that later. So here we go. This is back to how it works, the check station feature. So the next step here is to basically look up what rate is assigned to your station as a default rate. And if there is a default rate, it's just going to pass directly through to the application. If there isn't a default rate, it's going to ask that you put one in. So how does that work? The first thing it does is it loads the table. So it's going to create or load a record of your station name. So this is the very first thing it does, is it loads this up. And it might be a brand new record, right? Because it's the first time the station has existed. And then it's going to store whatever's in that table, this table here. When we started up, these were blank. It's going to store those into these variables. These variables are going to be persistent throughout the entire application. So that's what we do first. We just load it up. The next thing we do is we look at them. So are they blank? If they have stuff in them, then what we're going to do is we're going to take this information from the station, and we're going to store it to the variable. If it and this is actually redundant at this point. I can actually remove these, but it's just showing you this is what's happening. So it's doing this, and then it's going to store a default to the model selected, and it's going to move to the main page. This is just going to happen automatically, very quickly, if there is if there's information in your station. If there isn't, then you're required to enter something in. So these will be blank, and you'll have to enter them in like we did and press continue. And what continue is going to do is it's going to store the variables you just entered into the table so that it can be recalled later on. So it's going to store this information and move to the next page. So that's how that works, and now we're in the main page. So this is the main page. Here it is running. You can see that the goal has been increasing, and the cell is behind. So let's just, there we go, back up. We're on target now. Okay, so how does this work? Well, it's based on a timer. So let's look at the timer first. Every minute, it's going to check your current date and time. Again, so every minute, it's going to check your current date and time against the last time something was updated. So it could be the last time the timer went off, or the last time you pressed the button, or whatever, but it's going to say, okay, how many hours has passed? That's what this means here. Current date minus last time updated divided by 3600 because it's in seconds. And that is the amount of time that's passed. And then it's going to multiply that by how many you would expect in an hour. So how many hours have passed? How many would you expect in an hour? That's your goal, your instantaneous goal. And then it's going to increment your total by that instantaneous goal, and it's going to complete. So that's it. That's what the timer does. Every time that you leave, or like you complete and leave the application, what it's going to do, or leave the step, what it's going to do is it's going to update the time. So update, store current date and time into last updated. And then what it's going to do is work with these color variables. So it's going to say, all right, well, is your total goal less than your total completed? Less than or equal? So if you have more or equal to what you should have by now, let's make it green. This is the new color feature, color variable feature. If not, let's make it red. So that's why we keep seeing that dynamic color change. And that's it. That's how that works. If you click on this button to increase your output, what's going to happen here is it's going to store the quantity that you said you would produce every time you push the button into your good instant. I use good instant because and goal instant because of analytics. I want to sum all those up. So every time it completes, I want to just complete 1 or 2 or whatever the quantity per is. I'm going to sum those up. So it makes the hourly scorecard work. Then I'm going to increment my good total by the quantity per when I press that button, because that's going to show on the screen to the associate how many they have in real time. And then when I press this button, I'm going to make a completion. And during that time, there was some amount of a target that should have been created. So that target, I'm also going to increment as well here. So it's going to be a percentage, like a fraction of a second's worth, but it's going to add up the way it should. So that's why I have the goal here. And actually, I'm going to delete this quantity per. Pretend you didn't see that. Okay, so that's the goal. And then I'm going to increment the goal. And then I'm going to go back to the main page again. So that's how that button works. And that's the entire application for tracking this. This is what all the other applications are going to be based on. The last thing I'll mention here is this model number. So I could change models. Right now, I'm going to, let's say I want to use a slower model. It's going to change which model I'm working on, and now my rate's going to be different. So that works by referencing these model numbers in this table. And you can add new models or whatever you want here, but they have the same units per hour and quantity per expectations. So let's look quickly at how that button works. It's pretty straightforward. All I'm going to do is check to see that the model you entered actually exists in the table. If it does, then I'm going to do the goal instant thing again, because I'm going to make a completion here. I want to track how much I should have earned prior to the change. And again, I'm going to delete this thing here because that was an older version and we don't need that. Okay, so then I'm going to increase by the goal, the goal by the instant goal. And then I'm going to load up the new rates. And I'm going to store those new rates into the variables I'm using to produce my targets. So this new rate has been stored into the table, and then I'm going to go ahead and complete and change. So this is the whole application here. This is how it works. Now I have an hourly scorecard that I can use anywhere in the factory. And you could even have, for example, a single dashboard that shows, let's see what I mean by this. You could have a single dashboard that shows every station how it's performing against its target. So here's assembly 1 earlier, and here's assembly 2. You could have all of your stations reporting their output against their targets each day. So that's how the application works. You can download it and use it now. I'll give you a sneak peek into another application. That application is the yield one. So from production control bundle, we have a yield one as well. So same exact, you'll recognize a lot of the same things here, station check, station configuration, but now we have a yield target. And then on the main page, they're able to say good or bad, and then you'll see a yield percentage here. And then that yield percentage, a good quantity, bad quantity, will also record what reason did you have for it to go to be bad. So you can see how this same model can be expanded, because now you could look at defect Paretos and this sort of thing. So we'll talk about this next time, but that's how the application works. I hope that was interesting. I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much.